because hello.
Yep, we're still here.
Okay. Yep. And now, somebody called me and said, well, are you guys going to be open? I got members calling me. Are you going to be open? So-and-so is open. No, unless the governor comes on and says, we can be open with these stipulations, to be open would be basically turning the other way. And then when somebody calls me, let's say hypothetically somebody calls me and says, hey, this is, Joe Schmo, why are you guys open? Oh, well, because everybody else is? Well, that doesn't have a leg to stand on. If there was a stipulation that said, we're an essential business, then fine, I can say something. But, we just need to do the right thing as an organization and as golf courses and as a business. So, again, folks, that's my 2 cents. And like I said, I'm not sitting here to say everybody, should be shut down. Well, here's the deal. If we're following the orders of the governor, then if he can come out and say you guys can be open, then we can be open. If he says shut down, then we all need to be shut down. Everybody needs to be on the same playing field. So that's what I feel, Nikki, and I know Tom's on the call now too, and that's just how I feel. And I think that's what a lot of golf courses that are shut down are feeling. And when the courses that are open say, yeah, I don't want to get on camera because we're just going to stay open as long as we can. Well, then they know they're doing something wrong. And I just don't think that's right. And I feel I don't think I'm going to be the only one thinking this same thing. And the ones that are open, if they can justify being open and say, well, yeah, the governor said I could be. Well, no. Somebody called Desert Dunes the other day when they were open and said, why are you guys open? Well, we don't fall under those guidelines. Since when? Since when? Do we not follow it? Like I said, the governor made it clear, and it's very clear on any website that you see what the essentials are, and we're not one of them. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your thoughts, and that's
Sure.
why we're all getting together. I'm going to switch it over to Tom if he wants to start the call. And I do want to let everyone know that this call is recorded. We just need to let you know that. And of course, the call will be posted on scpga.com following our meeting this morning. Tom, are you still with us?
I am. Sorry for the sound glitch to begin with there. And finally got it fixed from this end. I'm sorry we missed it. Sounds like an important statement or conversation there. This is our second chat. We started on this past Friday. We're now in our second, started at 9:30 for those of you just getting on. We'll go for an hour, talk about most meaningful pieces of this crisis that we're in, and what other people think. That's the main thing of these and for these conversations, is to know what you're thinking, what you're doing, with the eye on, of course, protecting your family, protecting your friends, your fellow workers, your facilities. Keeping that in mind, I know there's some inconsistency, as I caught on there in the last conversation before I came on, inconsistencies in messages around not only the state, but neighboring states as well, because we see the notices from neighboring states. Nevada, for example, the proclamation went out over the weekend. Don't know if it's still in effect because I haven't seen anything, and I don't know if Craig or Craig Kessler from the Southern California Golf Association or Tony Rice, who is our consultant and lobbyist in Sacramento, are on yet. I know both of Craig and Tony, or Kevin Fitzgerald from the SCGA, are on yet. They had earlier meetings, and we're going to try to get on as soon as their meetings were over. But Nevada,
Craig is on.
Craig, Nevada,
Tony's on.
Thanks, Tony. Unless Tony or Craig has something new, but Nevada came out. It was okay for their golf courses to open, and certain local governments are saying the same thing. Oceanside just over the weekend was open. I know Holly's on the line. Don't know whether that's still available, and that's what these calls are for, so we can discuss the status of our golf courses in Southern and Northern California. I know Northern California has started a series of these calls as well, and so that is the purpose of what we're doing here. Craig and or Tony or Kevin, is there anything new that we should be aware of? I know that there was a lot of closures happening over the weekend, whether it be City of San Diego, LA City, LA County golf courses. American golf is completely shut down, as we know. Anything new to report in that regard?
Yeah, Tom, there's quite a bit new. This is Craig. Quite a bit new to report from our call on Friday. In fact, and I can give you a little bit of glimpse into Nevada. Yes, the order still stands in the state of Nevada that a certain kind of walking golf is permitted. I also was on the phone with some folks who are very close to the situation in Nevada, both politically and in the golf community. It is their opinion that that will hold no more than 4 days. So, again, that's just an opinion, but right now it holds. So I listened a little bit to the conversation that was going on before the call, and simply said, I'm going to give a little bit of background, and I apologize to anyone who was on Friday's call because some of this may be repetitive. But from the very beginning of this and through now, the governor has taken a stance that one size fits all does not suit the fifth largest economy in the world, which has 80 microclimates and all different kinds of communities. So he determined to set the floor, as it were, and permit localities, mostly counties, because the way California is organized, both state and federal programs run through the organs of the counties, not through the cities, which is quite different from most states in the United States. But to permit them to exceed those standards based upon local concern, based upon local circumstances, and based upon local needs and even local perceptions. So we're all aware that the 6 Bay Area counties got together a long time ago. So it seems like a long time ago. It was probably 8-10 days ago, and agreed to a set of standards that were quite a bit more onerous than the governor's standards with respect to closures. So golf courses, by and large, in those 6 counties, those that were following the rules, have been closed for a lengthy period of time. Not so with Yolo County or Sacramento County, and we can deal with that a little bit later. So that still remains true, except that with each passing day and sometimes with each passing hour, which is why the confusion. The governor keeps raising that floor. So on Friday or Thursday, the floor was such that, for example, the San Diego municipal system, the Los Angeles City municipal system, or LA County system, they had written orders or directives that were quite a bit more onerous than the governor's. Yet under those directives, those very governments that wrote the orders deemed that under certain conditions, they could open their golf courses. Keeping in mind that the municipal systems in San Diego and Los Angeles County are literally owned and operated by those who wrote those particular directives. They interpreted the directives to permit them to continue to play golf. That is no longer true. The reality is they didn't change their directive. 2 things happened. The governor on yesterday raised the floor, and the municipalities themselves, there was blowback on those golf courses being open. But I want to add, there was blowback on even trails being open. Today in Los Angeles, the beach parking lots are closed, and there's discussion of closing the beaches by the time we get to 5 o'clock, literally cordoning them off. One cannot get into the Santa Monica Mountains wilderness areas. The roads are blocked. One cannot play catch with one's child on a ball field. That's 2 people. That sounds good. All this has really, really become considerably stricter. So if there has been confusion that's reigned in terms of golf facilities, some open, some closed, many of them that were open, at least for a few days, were within the confines of the law under which they were operating. And keep in mind that's a different threshold. Just because one's following, the law is the most minimal of thresholds. There are a whole lot of other reasons that go into whether one should open or close. But basically, since Friday, we've arrived at a situation on Monday in which it would appear that the governor and I say it would appear because anyone who can tell you definitely what some of that language means, don't buy a bridge from them. Let me just be straight about that. And I know that is difficult for those who are not really conversant in how the law works, but this is not all black letter stuff. And even what goes to the issue of an essential service, initially when the governor issued that, and as I personally was listening to the press conference, I thought, that's it? Every golf course in the state closes, until you look very closely at the order. And initially last Wednesday, was it Thursday, you could drive a truck through that. Almost anything, any service at all was essential under that. That has been tightened and tightened and tightened and tightened again, appropriately, I think. So sometimes we assume that in a crisis like this, that even a governor's office it has a full grasp of what they're doing, and that would be a bad assumption. So they're continuing to sort of fix it and change it as we move forward. But again, it would appear now that under that floor that the governor's office has set, but that wasn't set on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It wasn't even clear yesterday. It was sometime yesterday that it began to change, and it's in the process of changing. And one of the things that the golf community wants to change right now is to get clarification that during closure, that indeed these golf courses, which are quite vulnerable if they're abandoned, can do two things: protect themselves against vandalism, encampment, theft, and those kinds of things, and ensure that practicing safe social distancing. Maintenance crews can at least keep them up to speed, because at some point they're going to reopen. Now, the good news on that is that the 6 northern counties, which are much stricter than the rest of the state and have been for some time, have all agreed that even their strict ordinances, their strict directives, permitted that level of maintenance. And we know that a number of northeastern states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, where the virus is considerably more onerous than it is here in California, have stopped playing golf as well. And in each case, the governor's office has said, well, certainly you can defend your facilities, you can provide security, and when they discover what it means, particularly with no public on it, to maintain a golf course, it's not particularly difficult. And I'll just simply close this sort of initial introduction by saying that some of these things, again, the conversation I came into was, it's something that we at the SCGA dealt with as well, that we can tell a facility what the law is, what the orders are, because that's sort of a threshold question, because if it indeed appears that one is, proscribed from doing something, there's nothing more to talk about. But for a number of days, that was not the case. You could actually open. And we always stated that then there's a number of other factors to consider, and they're the facilities factors to consider. They're not the golf association's factor to consider. Our obligation, and I hope we've done a good job, is to put out accurate information in a timely manner so facilities and those who work in the industry can make their best informed choices as to what they need to do or not to do. And since facilities are so different, and in this case, for a long period of time, until the governor raised the floor, they were operating in extraordinarily different environments. Sometimes a mile apart, a golf course in Los Angeles County was operating under a directive that was considerably stricter than just over the line in Orange County. And keeping in mind, even Orange County, the health director made an enormous mistake and basically put something out one day that had to be completely revised 12 hours later. And so this is a very confused times, and everyone's heard the phrase, hard cases make bad laws. Well, crises make for even worse public policy, and so we're really muddling through. So I would caution everyone. Again, everyone's entitled to an opinion, but I think it's at this point that, again, I think we at the SCGA now, it took the position that we weren't we were going to allow the facilities to make their own judgments, and we were going to give them the best information available. And as an idea, literally, that information has sometimes changed, is different from morning to afternoon, from day to day, and even from hour to hour. But here's the trajectory of all that information. Things are going to be tightening down for the foreseeable future, and at some point they'll flatten, and then they will rise back up. And that's going to be dependent on the numbers involving COVID-19. It's not going to be dependent on business considerations or any of those kinds of things. However, once we hit that bottom and start talking about coming back, I know there's a lot of thought going to, it isn't going to be an all-clear signal that suddenly, the hurricane is over, it's safe to come out. It's going to be something that which slowly eases, and as it does and golf goes back, have we learned anything about, perhaps I think we have. We've seen bad examples, and we've seen a few good examples of social distancing consistent with also separation between public and staffing and so forth. And I think it's incumbent on the industry to take that, and as we do come back online or permitted to come back online, maybe issue some what we found to be effective best practices that are consistent with the order as it is at the time. And then eventually all those orders will come off and we'll be back to the normal order of business. But that could be some time off, and by the time we do, there will probably be facilities that don't reopen because they financially cannot. So with that, I apologize for the length of the speech, but I always feel in these circumstances, and I certainly, with AB 5, which will still come back on our plates at some point when the emergency is over, I felt I had to give so many speeches on the difference between the impact of a court decision and a piece of legislation, and what the interaction was between the two. And the fact is that when you're talking about new language in a piece of legislation that hasn't even gone into effect yet, it's been construed by no court. So when you look for definitive answers, I always went around and told the story about having conversations with some of the best employment counsel in the state of California. And basically, it was just a conversation of total confusion. It could be this, on one hand this, and on one hand the other. And I know many get frustrated with that. You want a definitive answer. And almost more often than not in things like this, where there are definitive answers, it means you're not really even asking the questions because it's largely given. It's in situations like this, and I hearken back to AB 5, which is parallel, not in the sense of a public crisis, but is parallel in the sense that black letter law and things like that simply don't go together. So there is no definition. So you end up with, in that case, with a calculus of risk and what that means as it moves. And in this case, you end up with how do you overlay a minimum standard set by a governor which sets a floor that keeps raising. And then how do you court, and then what specific jurisdiction are you in? And for example, I know today the city of La Quinta has issued an order to shut down all the golf courses. And assuming they haven't been preempted by others, and that's a good assumption, I think, that's pretty straightforward, and it gives you definition. Now, Palm Desert is next door, and of course is there maybe making some other decisions, and I think that's the reason we have some of this confusion. It isn't really because of the golf industry, it's because of all industries and businesses are having to make decisions based upon a confusing morass, and then when you go to ask persons you think who can give you a definitive answer, they give you on one hand this, on the other hand that. It all depends, and I know that's very, very frustrating. But to be definitive is to be, I'll just put it bluntly, is to be dishonest in some of these situations. So now that I've at least, I hope, relaxed everyone that if you're confused, it's not you. It's a confusing situation, and so maybe in the rest of this call, we'll try to unravel a little bit of that confusion. And then I think as I came on the phone, and I think as Tom suggested, perfectly appropriate for people to give their opinions as to what is right or wrong. I just feel obligated to not give information about what is accurate and inaccurate. I have my own opinions about what's right and wrong, but I'll keep those to myself.
Greg, I believe before we go to Tony, and I encourage you, if you have any questions, to please write them down so we don't forget. But I would like for Tony Rice to make a few comments. But I believe City of Indian Wells has closed their golf courses as well. So if somebody knows different, then please say otherwise. But Tony, are you still there?
Yeah, Tom, I'm still here. I appreciate the queue up, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, but much like Craig, there's a lot of things to talk about. So I will try to limit myself. Feel free to jump in anytime. I think listening to Craig and listening to all of us talk either on Friday or just amongst ourselves or even the dynamic dialogue that I think jumped in halfway through when I first dialed in. I think the net of everything right now is that none of us on this call is going to have 100% clear answer. I think we are all trying to muddle this through, and I'm sure I'm not saying anything new that all of us haven't thought about. These are dynamic times, and based on jurisdictions, they have different opinions. And I want to kind of start with that as a jump off point. Hearing, different localities around the state, including some of the most Gulf dense areas in the country, are starting to shut down, I think should give everybody pause. And I think there's two dynamics that go into that. I keep using that word dynamic today for whatever reason, but I guess these are challenging times. So I'm just going to kind of go with it. But yesterday, me and my fiance needed to get out of the house, as I'm sure everybody does. And we went on a motorcycle ride just here in Sacramento County. And there were 3 courses that we passed that were absolutely just packed to the gills with avid golfers. To the governor's directive and to other folks who have said, look, we encourage people to get out and enjoy nature. We understand being cooped up is not the best thing for everyone's mental health and well-being. You are starting to see a walk back of that, and not necessarily through the governor's directive, but beaches in Northern California were being populated, and now locals have closed that. Specifically, when I say locals, Marin County, San Francisco, there was a fire. The fire department went and just broke up a couple of parks in San Francisco over the weekend, and that's just people meandering around, maybe getting too close, but certainly that's not congregating around a pin that we're all trying to get our best scores on. So there is no right answer right now that you're going to get from any of us. I think if you have questions about whether your course should be operating, the most appropriate folks to call is your local jurisdiction, whether that be an unincorporated county, whether that be the city that you reside in, the public health official. And I would also recommend being vigilant with follow-up, because what one person's advice may be as it relates to the operation of your golf course may not be what the official party line is. And when I say that, I'll give a specific example. Over the weekend, I think if you were on the call on Friday, you heard me describe that in between the CAG call and this call, I got hit up by an old lobbyist friend. He's wondering if folks can still play golf, and we went through that. Well, evidently he has a county here in Northern California, a board of supervisors that is questioning whether they should or should not be allowing golf course. He's asked me to jump on a call this afternoon to walk a couple of board of supervisors members through the arguments, the pros and cons, because this really is a thumbs up, thumbs down personal opinion at the end of the day as to whether or not these courses should be operating. Now, there's also I think the functional real question of, if you are going to shut down, how do you care for these courses? How do you deal with that? That's, I don't want to say a secondary concern, but that is a legitimate reasoning for folks to kind of muddle through, I guess, at least intellectually at first, and then they're going to have to decide how they want to handle that, because we can't just let these courses just overrun and not be tended to. At least I don't think that that's going to be the rationale that people will fall on when this is all said and done. So right now, I'll just kind of reiterate what Craig said, and not that I needed to, but the governor allowed a floor. but it really doesn't speak to a lot of other industries other than what he identified as these are essential public services that need to be maintained so that our society does not collapse tomorrow. And it's a 14-page document. It started making the rounds, and I believe it came out late Friday. It started making the rounds on Saturday, which is when I put it out to all of my clients and interested parties. And it goes through not just public safety, but manufacturing, different industries that are essential to just maintaining basic public life. You're a mechanic. Your car breaks down. Mechanics are allowed to operate. You need clean clothes. Some of us still wearing suit and ties. You can still go to the laundromat and or the dry cleaner. So it's not just sheriffs, police, healthcare professionals. So it goes through that. So then beyond that, the governor has said over the weekend he is not going to supersede local authority. If they want to go further, they can. And so when it comes to if in fact your city, your unincorporated county who has jurisdiction over your courses makes a determination whether it's in code, they do a statute, it doesn't have to be. If they say like, look, we're under emergency authority, you don't get to operate, you don't have much recourse. And the governor is not going to supersede that with any kind of statewide directive. He is allowing the locals. So if you can't play golf right now in La Quinta or other jurisdictions, you probably are not going to, and don't look to the governor for relief. If you, like Sacramento, are still allowing some form of it, then it gets into should you, right? And I'm not here to make that determination for any of you. I think that first conversation we all kind of came on is whether or not it's appropriate to be operating a golf course. That's above my pay grade. You guys are way smarter than that than I am. I'm just giving you the legalities of it right now. So I think I've said my piece. It is unclear. I think your local jurisdictions are the best folks to get response from. Do not expect statewide backup for a countervailing perspective. If the cities or counties make a determination that you have to shut down and we're not happy with it, that's going to be the determination going forward. So with that, I'll stop and, obviously offer myself for any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Craig or Tony? Anybody has right now? And if you do, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, this is Neil Finch.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, I spoke with a police officer yesterday, and I was asked. I asked him the question. I said, "What is the enforcement element to this?" He said that when they, as police officers, got into the room, they got down together. He said, "There's absolutely no enforcement element." He said they can't tell you the section or penal code or whatever you're there. He said, so somebody comes up to you on with a light on the top of a code enforcement vehicle. He said, actually have no jurisdiction. He's coming from a police officer who said, I don't identify me, but that's what we got gathered together, and the sergeant came out before we hit the streets. I wanted to know what Craig and Tony, what their thoughts are. They said there's absolutely no enforcement element whatsoever. He said that as the municipality, the governor can put pressure on the mayor, Nestries and Indian Wells Country Club, or La Quinta, Silver Rock, or Torrey Pines was open for a day and then they were closed. But they can put pressure from a municipality because they supply them with money. They said there is no enforcement element. So I just like the opinion on that, because that's something I heard from a law enforcement officer and what he was told by his superiors.
I'll venture an answer to that. It depends on the jurisdiction. So there are enforcement mechanisms, and they have been used in the Bay Area 6 counties, most notably Marin County. They're not onerous penalties, but pretty much, and there have been, and as Tony alluded to, and it's happened in Los Angeles as well, there have been sort of sheriff's departments have come out, not police, and sort of broken up and suggested to people that they are not adhering to the 6 feet of separation that's under the social distancing protocols. So that enforcement? Is that fines? No. But I would also add the following: that the real reason, well before the governor, raised the floor a little bit, the reason that the Los Angeles municipal system, the LA County system, a number of others, and particularly in San Diego system, I'm going to assume, but I don't know that one for a fact. They didn't close because of any penalties, fines, or legal requirements. They closed because there was public blowback, and I think that's something that everyone ought to be aware of, that in an environment in which there are so many people either sheltering it, and let me get to this shelter in place. We're not under shelter in place. That's a term of art for an industrial accident or a school shooting. That is a very temporary and very, very limited, severe, protocol. And it was unfortunate that San Francisco stuck us with that term. Others have used "stay at home." That's much better, or "safer at home." That's another iteration of it. But again, moving forward, no. Just again, it depends on the jurisdiction, and it sounds like in the desert, the police have better things to do, and that's a practical matter. They do have better things to do than to separate a foursome on a golf course.
Tony, was that you?
Oh, that wasn't me.
Okay, we have. I don't know if he's still on the line. Michael Jones from the city of San Diego. Michael, if you are still on the line and have a comment related to this, and your opening and closures, or what your viewpoint is from the city of San Diego, that'd be great. Mike may not still be on the line, so okay. Any other questions for Craig or Tony?
Yeah, can I jump in? This is Dave Zickow calling for Tony. And actually, I mean, whether Craig wants to jump in or as well, but so I contacted the city of Palm Desert and via email, because obviously there's nobody to answer the phone. So I emailed, somebody responded, and at that time, it was Desert Dunes. And they said, well, we don't have jurisdiction on Desert Dunes. That's the county of Riverside. And that's fine. So they said, per the city of Palm Desert, obviously Desert Willow is closed. Well, then to come to find out yesterday that the Marriott Desert Springs is open, Marriott Shadow Ridge, these are big corporations. So I email him again as well, and his response is, well, you need to call or talk or email the city of county of Riverside. So to kind of play off of what Tony was saying, here's my local jurisdiction in the city of Palm Desert saying, yes, per the mandate, the courses should be closed, according to his email. And this was on Friday. And so with that, Desert Willow's closed, but then to turn around and say the course right across the street is now open. And, well, now you have to call the city or the county of Riverside Department of Health to report anything. So that's where my frustration is, okay, I'm trying to get a hold of somebody, and they're saying that Palm Desert, and again, I'm not getting clear-cut answers that Palm Desert should be shut down. Obviously, the city course at Palm Desert is shut down, but not other courses in Palm Desert are shut. So that's my frustration is, can I even get answers from the city? And nobody's obviously answering a phone because they're not there. So, again, Tony, that's sort of my frustration here is, yeah, I mean, I want to be open. We all do, but I want answers. And I think I can't be the only one. So. Since
I've driven by both those courses many times and familiar with their ownership structures, let me venture an answer here. Desert Willow is owned by the city of Palm Desert. So the city of Palm Desert has made a decision. They're free to make it. They own the golf course. They think it's appropriate. They think it's whether they think they have to close it under the Riverside County orders under which they're operating or not is I don't know the answer to that question, and they may not know the answer to that question. But they think it's the right thing to do to close the golf course for a variety of reasons. The other golf courses, obviously the city of Palm Desert has not issued a directive like La Quinta has, so they are totally under the directive of their county, and that's more often the case right now. So it is the Riverside County. So you really got directed to the right place. It's just a question, again, and this comes up all the time, of the relationship between various governments, and also, and this reminds me of all the glyphosate debates, that the glyphosate is perfectly legal in the state of California. However, a landowner can be a government, is free to say we're not going to use it on our golf courses we own or the parks that we own. That's a policy decision, much as you as a homeowner can determine what herbicides you do or do not use on your backyard. All you have to do is make sure you don't use something that's illegal, because you probably can't buy it. So again, I know that's frustrating, and that's why I gave the long speech at the beginning, that in most of these issues, it gets down to you don't get definitive answers because the answer you're looking for is just not there. And funny, when the crisis passes or when these issues are not focused, I think you will thank your lucky stars that actually we live in a system where maybe there's confusion and you don't get answers. On the other hand, you don't have one level of government that's not responsive, that is dictating every aspect of your life. It may seem otherwise, but our system's a little bit different. And my answer may have frustrated you as well, but the guy gave you a good piece of advice, and I'm not sufficiently familiar with the Riverside Directive as it now exists, because these things are works in progress, to answer your question. But I do think, one would hope if you call the public health department that they will give you an answer. But we have anecdotal stories of those who have done that and gotten two different opinions from the same health department. So again,
Hey, Craig, this is Tony. Let me jump in here too.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here too. So I think it's also I think the heart of the question is as it was posed to me initially was, where can you go? And I think what you're hearing from Craig and what I've talked about too is that and as well you just found out, it's difficult to find an answer. In times like this though, when you have people pointing fingers at each other and they'll give you a response and then you push back and say, well, what about this? And then they are afraid of making a wrong interpretation that could come back on them, is you have to go higher up on the food chain. And what I would recommend, based on what you've already identified, and it is frustrating, especially to follow up when people are telecommuting and a lot of local officials are just scrambling, just trying to figure out how to handle themselves and their jurisdictions, is I would strongly recommend you find out who your Board of Supervisors member is. If it's if they have districts or if it's at large, everyone's slightly different. But find out who represents that golf course that you're trying to get a response from and work through their office. They may not know, but it's their job to get you the right answer. So whereas the Department of Public Health could give you a directive based on their interpretation, many localities, I do not believe, have taken a specific position yet as it relates to golf. Some have, but most of the 58 counties of 485 cities have probably not gotten down to that level of detail, but it is the elected officials' responsibility to make some form of determination when asked, especially when you have competing priorities going on, where one golf course city is saying something, which, as Craig mentioned, is in their purview, but a private one or something with a different jurisdiction, nearby is doing something different. They want to offer some clarity too. Now, you may not like the answer, but I think at this point in time, the higher up on the food chain you can go, the better. And so I would recommend trying to reach out to whatever Board of Supervisor member has that golf course, talk to their office, and see if you can get some clarity.
Okay. Yeah, I think that answers my question, Tony, and I appreciate it. And because, like I said, it's just kind of confusing where everybody's passing the buck, and you're like, okay, let me call here. Well, now you go over here, now you go over here, and I'm like, somebody just help me out here. And I, like I said, I can't be the only one with the frustration that what's going on. So.
You're not. And just to put a bow on it, is whether the Board of Supervisors has a position or not, they need to figure that out. So I recommend you at least going there, because whether they have the answer or not, it's their responsibility to give you a valid response. So, like I said, you may not like the answer, but I think that's where your next step might be.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Any other questions for Craig or Tony at this point?
This is Neil Finch again. I've always been said, Craig and Tony, you know this better than I do. I've always, if you want to stay open, I was told that if you want to stay open, don't call anyone, because as a lawyer, you don't ever ask a question that you don't want the answer to. And so if you know what the answer might be or whatever, just don't answer the question. They're overwhelmed. And again, that's just, you want to stay open. I realize that people might like that. It's a pretty aggressive stance, but if you don't want the answer, you're probably better off not to ask the question. And that's a lawyer 101. What's your thoughts on that?
You're asking Tony or Craig?
Tony or Craig, yes.
Okay.
Craig, you're an attorney, so you want to take that one?
How about if we just let your statement stand as your opinion, and let Tony and Craig not comment on that, because our responsibility here is to provide as much accurate information and as much clarity as possible in a situation which is inherently unclear. And so I don't think by responding to your comment and your piece of advice to others that we would bring more clarity. I think we would bring opacity to this. So Tony, if you care to venture an answer, I think I'll let mine stand as that.
That's fair.
No, I think you're 100% dead on this one, Craig. It's just, frankly, for me, you're an attorney, so you have more. It's above my pay grade to answer that question. We can just give you the facts as we see it today, and then you're going to have to do what you think is best on your end. So I think it'd be irresponsible, frankly, if Craig and I gave you some advice and you got hammered, and then wouldn't make us look too good when it's all said and done.
Thank you. I also want to note that we have Tom Brawley, who's our PGA of America membership director, on the conference as well. Tony Latendre, our section president, is also on the conference. So I don't know if there's anybody else from the PGA of America on the line. If there is, and they would like to identify themselves, I can't tell by the list of numbers here that I'm looking at. But if you have any questions for Mr. Brawley regarding PGA membership, or for Tony Latendre, our section president, or if Tony Latendre would like to make any comments, then the floor is open.
Well, if there's no questions for me, I'll add a little bit of anecdotal information. And the couple things that Neil, you had asked a question about enforcement, and it's really going to boil down to jurisdictions and what they want to enforce. I can tell you that in Orange County, the letter of the law is a little bit softer than maybe LA County and San Diego County as far as what the county had written and published. But I can also tell you on very good authority, because I was on the phone with the manager yesterday, that Coto de Casa in South Orange County, next door to us, was shut down with 6 squad cars from Orange County Sheriff's Department in their parking lot, ensuring that they pulled everybody off the golf course. So again, and the conversation with the officer that the manager had was, why is it that you're shutting us down? This is pretty ambiguous. That there's really nothing that says golf courses have to be shut down. Yes, LA County shut down their golf courses in their notification. San Diego, the city golf courses were closed after being open. I did a lot of leg traffic with some of my staff yesterday, LA County, San Diego County, Orange County, and can literally count on one hand the golf courses that are open. But again, it's not because of any mandate that they're told to be closed. I think it's more a matter of personal opinion. Neil, to your comment, kind of like the rules of golf, in the absence of a rule doesn't make it a rule. So you can take your interpretation however you want, but I also think the court of public opinion, so to speak, is a huge factor there. I am a believer, and this is my opinion, that the reason Kodo got shut down by the sheriff's department was because of community uproar. The golfers were all ecstatic that there was a place to go play, and they were taking all the measures that they could, single riders and carts, sanitizing everything, taking all the scorecards and pencils off, no flag sticks. I mean, everything, all the touch points. They were taking all the precautions that we actually, in honesty, were looking at taking as well. But I think the court of public opinion, so to speak, shut them down. I think some people made some phone calls and were definitely vocal on social media. I was talking to the manager there, and on social media, they were being blasted by the non-golfers and praised by the golfers. So it was very, very split, obviously. At Dove, we have had conversations about opening. We are closed at this moment, other than our restaurant. As I said on the call last week, we do have a restaurant that services not only our members, but we are in the center of a community of 1,300 residences. So we are operating as a to-go restaurant, and we have opened our doors to the community members. That was our decision. The non-members can come and eat get takeout, I should say. But again, it's just going to boil down to what everybody's interpretation of the law is until there's a mandate to do so. I can also share, and I questioned this one, and I'll say this as just a hearsay, but I hate the mother's cousin's brother's sister's neighbor story, but the reality of this is a friend's daughter's friend literally got a ticket for standing too close to somebody. I don't know what city it happened in, and I called BS on it, but I was told that no, the daughter actually saw a picture of the ticket, and I'm trying to get that, so I have it on good authority. But I mean, this social distancing thing might really be a thing if somebody's gotten a ticket for standing too close to somebody on a city street. So, to your point, Neil, enforcement is enforcement, and it's just going to depend on what happens. Every city's going to tell you something different. Orange County, LA County, San Diego County, the courses that we called and did some homework on, literally I can count on one hand, as I said, the ones that are open at all.
Tony or Tom, this is Jamie Mulligan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm from Virginia Country Club in Long Beach, and sorry I'm late into the call. I was mowing our greens this morning, so hopefully nobody's playing after. Fortunately, nobody's playing after I'm done because I didn't do that good a job. But anyhow, Tom or Tony, do you think that we could get a status quo sheet on all of our facilities on what they're doing that could be done on a daily basis by the manager, the CEO, the pro, whoever, that shows where we are, what we're doing? If this has already been discussed, I apologize for that, and thank you for putting together this call. It's very informative.
No, there's Jamie. I'll go ahead, Tony, if that's okay, and Nikki's on the line also. We sent out a survey last week. We're going to be updating that survey, and that will go out on a more regular basis because Jamie agreed. We want to keep up with the most current information as to what our golf facilities, our golf courses are doing. So please expect that survey, if not today, early tomorrow morning. And we asked that everybody respond to that survey. Last time, and Nikki can correct me, I think we had 145 responses to the survey, and that's pretty good regarding surveys. We'd like a larger response. We're going to add a couple of more questions that'll be a little more pointed towards operations and what you're doing. So please expect that survey from the section here very, very soon.
Thank you very much. And I think that that's so vital for everybody. And I think if it could be done almost on a daily basis with things ever changing, would be really helpful. Thanks for all what you're doing for our section and all the people that are on the call. Much appreciated.
Thanks for taking care of your golf course. I know that in texting and emailing with Robin Shelton, the same thing. He was out mowing greens. You might have seen the photograph on the socials, but that's what it takes. That's for sure.
Tom, I think you know well enough. I was kidding. Robin was doing it.
Oh, okay. Well, see, Jamie, I believe everything you say. So, Mr. Brawley, are you still on the line? If you have any comments, that would be appreciated.
Yes, sir. So over here from this side, where our beaches, even though they're on the wrong side, are closed as well. Seems to be, as I rode around a little bit this weekend, that most of the golf courses around here are open, but sort of practicing, things to try to be as safe as possible. I think, one thing I definitely want to talk about is the PGA's member assistance program. As there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of added stress in people's lives, their families' lives. Just a reminder that is available for counseling or reach out or going to the website, making a phone call, etc. But we are seeing folks that their mental well-being is affected by this. So just a reminder that that's there. Also, there is the PGA Disaster Relief. It does cover just medical if we do have any member or their family affected by the COVID-19 and had out-of-pocket medical expenses, that would be covered. And we're actively working with the Golf Relief and Assistance Fund to see if somehow that fund could possibly be used for things, as obviously we know that we have members and associates that have been laid off or lost jobs, to cover some expenses. So we're working through that with them. If that turns out to be positive, obviously we go into a major fundraising mode, where the industry could donate to help those who've been affected. So more to come on that. We're hoping that will be that will work out. But really, just a big reminder on the member assistance program. The PGA does have a COVID-19 link on PGA.org that has all sorts of information. Again, like folks on the phone earlier, definitely you need to take a look at what's going on in your local area and what those rules and regulations and what's being stated there is, along with the CDC.
Yeah, I'd like to remind you too, along with PGA.org, SCPGA.com, as well as SCPGAJuniorTour.com, have updated information regarding COVID-19 as well, and please use those sites. Any questions for Mr. Brawley? Anybody have? And I noticed that our president has another comment as well. Any questions for Mr. Brawley? Okay, Tony, you had another comment.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And Tom Brawley, thank you for being on the line with us. And of course, everybody for joining us, Craig and Tony Rice. And, thanks for all the information. It's changing hourly, as we all know, as we're watching the news. But I do want to, I see Nikki just posted the link to our updates on our website. So that's good. But just want to, for many of you that may or may not have seen President Whaley's message, I encourage you, I want to piggyback on what she said. I want to encourage you all to reach out to one another. Golf professional to golf professional, PGA member to PGA member, just golf industry leader to golf industry leader. And we're all in this together. And sometimes it's just good to hear a familiar face and maybe get a couple of comments and share some ideas and let people know that we're all in this together. So hopefully everyone will do that. And we create this web of communication that, hey, we're not alone. We're all going through the same thing. We're all struggling. We all have this unknown, but maybe there's some safety and some solace in the fact that we are in this together. And we are a very fraternal association, and we are brothers and sisters. And so let's make sure that we reach out to our brothers and sisters to offer guidance, offer help, and maybe just be an ear if they need it.
Thank you. Speaking of that too, if you go to scpga.com, go to the staff page, you'll notice the photographs of our staff. And if you have any questions, our direct line is listed right under our photograph, as well as our email address. And I know Jeff's on the line, and Jeff Johnson handles all of our membership questions. So don't hesitate to call Jeff or me or Nikki or any one of our staff members if you need anything at all. If you have anything to share, as we mentioned to you, we're going to go back out with a survey, and it will be a frequent survey. So we'd ask that you respond, and anyone else that you know in the business respond also. Continue to recommend, and we have practiced the safe distance. I can't express enough, and not take any risks. Use your hand cleaner. Use your hand wipes as frequently as any time you step outside the house or touch something outside the house, especially if you're driving. Keep your automobile clean. Keep your laptop and your computer as well, and your telephone clean. Those are all the kinds of things that will help in fighting this virus. And we are going to continue to provide information. We will have a call, if not before, on Friday at noon, another one of these conferences. It is our goal to have 2 a week, and possibly more if needed. We like the suggestions about talking with our membership. We like the suggestions about updated information as often as we can get it. And we assure you that we will do that. Any more questions before we sign off from anybody? Questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you again. Again, a reminder that we'll be around. Hopefully you'll join again Friday, if not before. There are other, we encourage you to look. There are other conferences going on daily, whether it be directly related to COVID through the Employment Development Department, whatever department it might be, and we encourage you to participate. I know Northern California is going to do a series of conferences as well this week, and the National Golf Course Owners Association, the California Golf Course Owners Association, the GCSAA, I believe, has one today at 11 o'clock. And again, encourage you to participate as much as you can in these conferences so you can learn as much as you can for your operations. So being no questions, we will see you Friday. Encourage you the same line on Friday, and see you then. Thank you very much.